one of the tricks the media has done for a long time is they demonize someone and they usually call a white supremacist or neo-Nazi. And then they take that person and they try to associate that person, usually a Republican, in politics. They're doing the guilt by association game, and it forces the Republican to disavow and distance himself, and it makes him look weak. It's an old game they're playing, and they're playing it again with Nick Fuentes. Previously, years ago, they did that with David Duke, then Richard Spencer, and now Nick Fuentes. This time it's a little bit strange, though, because Nick Fuentes is not supporting Donald Trump's campaign. And I didn't say Donald Trump because Nick's being a little coy about that. He said, I don't hate Donald Trump. I hate his campaign. Supposedly in Nick's mind, Donald Trump was a different person in 2016. He was real based. He was going to do all these things. But now Donald Trump, no fault of his own, this corrupt team around him is hijacking the MAGA movement. And Nick seems to think that somehow he created the MAGA movement back in 2016. And he's mad at Trump's team, and he's demanding that Trump fire all these people like J.D. Vance, his campaign team, and he's listed a bunch of demands. and Trump is like some 78-year-old boomer, really doesn't know who Nick Fuentes is. But this is what Nick's doing. He's getting real upset about it. And Nick's been fairly complimentary towards Kamala. It really is. So it's interesting. This black female, Nick's pretty, Nick says he likes her brat routine. He can relate because I think Nick said he's also a brat, and he's also a messy bitch. So he can kind of relate to Kamala. Now, he's not supporting Kamala, but he can understand the vibe. And he said, I'm just concerned about the MAGA movement because it's been hijacked. But how it's been hijacked is another story. I'm not really quite sure because Trump's still talking about trade issues. He's talking about immigration. If you compare the two sides, there's no comparison between Trump and Kamala when it comes to the number one issue, which is immigration. Because if we don't stop the flow at the border and we don't start deporting people, this country's over. It's over. All the ideas of liberty, everything we knew about America is over. It may already be too late. And believe me, I've never been the guy like, oh, I will take a bullet for Trump. That's how Nick was at one time. I was never that guy. I always said Trump had a lot of issues. I disagreed with Trump, but he was the better of the two options. And he was better when it came to immigration. He had the stay in Mexico policy. Immigration was way down. So obviously it's a huge difference between Trump and Kamala. Kamala's going to welcome in the entire world. It's going to be a disaster. I could go about every other policy too. So when you compare the two, I think Trump is 1,000 times better. Do I think Trump is perfect? No. There's a lot of things I disagree with him, but I still support him. But Nick is real butthurt, and he's making these demands like somehow he's kingmaker. Otherwise, he's going to go after Trump, and he's going to make a difference in the election in battleground states. Take a look here.
So that's what we'll do. And you know what else I'm going to say? If they don't listen, I will escalate my tactics. I will escalate my tactics in swing states. I will go to swing states. I will go to the ones where they're in trouble the most, and I will make it worse. And I'll bring the groypers with me. And that I vow.
So the news, they interviewed J.D. Vance about Nick Fuentes, and this was J.D. Vance's response.
In your own movement, that's what I want to ask about, because one of the supremacists who was saying things like this about your family, Nick Fuentes, an avowed anti-Semite, went after your wife. He had previously dined at Mar-a-Lago with Donald Trump. Does this have any room in your movement, in the MAGA movement?
Of course it doesn't have any room in the MAGA movement, and of course...
You disavow him and this.
And of course Donald Trump has criticized this person. Look, I think the guy's a total loser. Certainly I disavow him, but if you ask me what I care more about, is it a person attacking me personally, or is it government policy that discriminates based on race? That's what I really worry about, is bad government policy that harms people based on their immutable characteristics. look, a lot of losers are going to attack me and attack my family. I think the proper response to them is to ignore them. Don't feed the trolls, and they largely go away. What I worry much more about is bad government policy, Margaret, because I think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, J.D. Vance called Nick Fuentes a total loser, disavowed him, said that President Trump has criticized him. While they're talking about the meeting that Trump had dinner with Nick Fuentes, that was this episode when Nick Fuentes was promoting Kanye West as president. Remember that? Nick Fuentes, who has a problem with J.D. Vance, who's a vice president candidate. I don't know if I can support J.D. Vance. He's got an Indian wife. That was a bridge too far. But he could support a mentally ill black rapper for president. That was okay in his worldview. Kind of strange, but whatever. But he was pals with Kanye before Kanye kicked him off. And Trump loves Kanye. So Kanye wanted to meet with Trump. Kanye brought along Nick Fuentes. Trump said he had no idea who Nick Fuentes was. And so that was the big scandal. I remember at the time the media was like, Trump has white supremacists in. And the Nick Fuentes crowd, they made a big to-do at the time. Oh, he never disavowed Nick. I'm like, well, it's even worse. He said he didn't even know who the hell this guy was. So there's this whole imaginary element that somehow Nick Fuentes thinks he's really controlling all these campaigns and he's like the kingmaker. And it's interesting. It's an interesting strategy because no matter what happens, Nick can spin this to his advantage. So let's say if Trump should lose, which is a big possibility, Nick can take credit for that. He said, hey, I warned Trump. I warned him, but I had to send my gripers out to the battleground states to defeat him. So if you want to be successful in the future, you better listen to me. Now, if Trump should win, Nick can come back and say, hey, he won, but that was due to my influence, and I made the necessary course corrections. I put pressure on Trump to change his course, his campaign, and I had to take the arrows, but that put Trump back on track. So see, either way, he could claim, yeah, I'm the big winner here. It's just so ridiculous. I don't quite understand why someone that's supposed to be for our people would, in effect, is working for Kamala Harris, helping her campaign. There's no one more anti-white, more anti-male, the whole bit than Kamala Harris. And yeah, Trump's not perfect. I have issues with him too. I'm not a big fan of his Israel first policy. But guess what? The Kamala Harris, they're that way too. Either way, you're going to get that in American politics. So we will see. We will see, because if Nick's right, Trump is really a good guy that secretly loves him. Well, Trump will come to J.D. Vance and say, oh, you called Nick a total loser. I'm not going to tolerate that. You're fired. I'm going to bring Nick on my team. Nick's going to be he'll be on my campaign manager. And we'll get a vice president candidate that Nick screens, verifies. It's so crazy. It's so crazy because Nick has no influence over these people at all. They want nothing to do with him. They don't. The only reason the media brings up Nick is the same reason they brought up Spencer or David Duke. Not because, they have fascinating ideas. It's just to pull down a candidate. It's to tarnish them. That's it. That's the only reason. And so J.D. Vance came out. I have no problem with J.D. Vance. I don't think he's perfect. But if you look at his views, he's one of the more like us than almost anyone else that was a candidate out there. Who else are they going to pick, right? Rubio, Nikki Haley. He was a great pick. He's one of our people. I support him. And I don't know, maybe Nick also hates J.D. Vance because J.D. Vance he was born in Kentucky, the South, and grew up poor. And I know Nick is against the South and blue-collar workers. Oh, icky hillbillies. They're not cosmopolitan like me. I don't know. I just don't understand that whole sphere anymore. At one time, America's First, it seemed to have a lot of momentum. People could get behind that because it's the rejection of all the crazy Richard Spencer alt-right neo-Nazism. Let's do optics. And then he ends up supporting some black rapper in a gimp mask talking about how he loves Hitler. I mean, what the fuck has happened here? So anyway, I don't really think this will have a major impact on the campaign. I don't know if Trump's going to win. Trump may still lose because just of the demographic changes, how the media is 100% against him. I'm not really that optimistic, but Nick Fuentes isn't going to make a difference one way or the other. Talk to you guys later.